stayed with me, all the things that have been going on there and how ignorant a lot of people have been towards this. And it's both from a humanitarian point of view as well as a point of view of how exactly do we maintain civilization? How do we how do we prevent the structure from toppling overboard? So, Armand, you're coming from a whole different world than JJ. JJ is former United States Border Patrol officer, and you're in the tech sphere, and you are also part of YIMBYs, not NIMBYs, YIMBYs for Harris. And you are a supporter of Kamala Harris as well as most Democrat candidates. So this may be kind of a point of contention between the two of you. But at the same time, I hope that a bridge can definitely be built here as far as the horrible things that are going on and how we could possibly address them. So actually, I want to go to Armand first. What do you see when it comes to what's going on the border right now as far as the biggest issues, as well as how you think we should go about solving them? And I'm going to then bring it over to JJ. But Armand, you've got the floor.
I think the biggest problem with migration right now is that we have a legal infrastructure that was built off of a post-World War II environment, with the idea being that never again would we have a situation where, for example, there's a boat of Jewish refugees that was turned away and got sent back to Germany. But it's really not adapted for a modern world where migration is just physically a lot easier. And so in periods of time when there's either distress somewhere in the world and the US economy is hiring a lot and growing quickly, there's both a push and a pull factor. And with asylum law, what ended up happening is that because we just did not have the amount of judges and asylum officers, what ended up happening is people's court dates got pushed further and further out, which then created an incentive to keep coming, because even if, for example, your asylum claim got rejected, you would have at least a few years of working in the United States. You might be able to get a green card in a different way, but getting married or something like that. And so it created a self-sustaining loop, which created a powerful incentive for folks to cross across the border. I think immigration is great, full cards on the table on the son of refugees. I know that enormous amount of data shows that immigration is a strength of this country, but I also don't think it's good to have it done in such a chaotic and overwhelming manner across the border. I think we want legal, orderly paths to immigration. Unfortunately, we don't currently have that. We have a lot of sort of, essentially improvisation within a broken and chaotic system. And I think to solve that, we need to do things along the lines of the border bill that was negotiated between Republicans and Democrats that Donald Trump shut down, that would provide more resources for asylum officers, judges, also modernize the modern asylum process, but then also create paths to legal citizenship for folks who've been here 30 years without any legal status. And so I think a balanced approach between those two things of sort of shutting down the incentives for illegal migration, provide more infrastructure at the border to handle the asylum process, but then also making it easier to actually legally immigrate. So if people aren't there's a waiting list. If you want to legally immigrate here, for example, from India, through a standard green card process, the waiting list is literally over 100 years. You will die and your children might die before you get off that waiting list. And so I think that's my overall perspective on it.
And JJ, I think you can agree with Armand when it comes to that waiting list for people who want to emigrate here legally. But when it comes to specifically that bill that Armand was talking about, do you disagree with Armand that could have helped the situation? And if so, why not? And then we're going to open this up into the broader problems that are going on. But, just to touch on that bill for a second.
No, I don't think that bill would help, not one bit. It was going to exasperate it. Here's the thing that there's some things that Armand said that I believe in. I believe in legal immigration. I think it is powerful, meaning that some of the greatest patriots we have are naturalized citizens. I absolutely believe it. Why are they great patriots? Because they come from the part of the world that has no law and order. They come to America and they can be anything they want. They can achieve greatness. They have the same opportunities as I do and my son has. Maybe not right now, as they on the lower economic, on the lower part of the ladder, and they move up. They can't move up now. Why? Because they're working for slave wages because illegal aliens have destroyed our nation. Now, if we're going to talk about legal immigration, then let's make sure we have the numbers correct. 1.2 million people are legally immigrated into America. Now, there is this push that everybody in the world, their right to come to America trumps our sovereignty and our nation's rules and laws. And it doesn't. Immigration needs to benefit America and Americans. If it does not, you're not allowed in our country. Period. Now, if we wait 1 second, you gave your gentleman a long time to talk about this, and there's a lot that he said that I want to parse out, but I know I'm not going to be able to do it all in one sitting. If this is a moot point when we get down to what is law and order. We have laws. We have freedom. The reason why we have freedom is because we have order. If we don't have order, we have chaos. We have no opportunity and freedom. It doesn't exist. So my pushback to everyone that I talk to about this, what is the number that you want to bring in legally? Meaning right now it's 1.2 million per law. If we want to change that, AOC, Mitch McConnell, this is a bipartisan issue. So I'm not railing just on Democrats. This is bipartisan treason. And I say openly and honestly, treason. Do you want to change that to 10 million? 20 million a year? Then let's pass it. Let's take it to the House and pass it. And then my ultimate question, Lev, is very, very simple. When there's 2 billion people that want to come into America right now, 2 billion minimum. So when you let in your 20 million a year, what are you going to do to stop the 1.98 billion that are trying to come in? So this is the torpedo that blows everything out of the water. Nobody wants to talk about what's best for America, and then what does the law state? And then if we're going to ignore the law, which we have, and have a lawless and a society that does not value any laws, which we do. We live in a country that has a 2, 3, 4 tiers of justice. Ultimately, are we going to follow the law, and are we going to do what's right for America and Americans? I'm going to give you just one data point right now. Indisputable. This is Department of Labor. Over 1.2 million Americans lost a job last year. Over 1.2 million illegal aliens got a job last year. Can we connect the dots at all? And it's funny, when unemployment happens to other people, it's a statistic. But when it happens to you, your whole world crumbles. Everything changes. Why can't we have an immigration system that's for America? And finally, and I'll turn it back to you, just so that everyone's very clear where I stand. 24 years in the Border Patrol, wrote a book about it, did 2 documentaries. Everything that is happening right now is against the law. It's never happened in the Border Patrol 100-year history. And everything Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Secretary Mayorkas, funded by the Republicans, is intentional, strategic, and purposeful to fundamentally transform America. And no one will change my mind on that.
So, Armand, this is a lot of information, but let's break it down. So, number one, to the question J.J. was asking about what the amount of legal migration would be satisfactory. In your opinion, what would that be? And I don't want to dwell too much on that subject. I think that the illegal aspect of it is way more important right now. But, Armand, let me know what you think. Like, what would be your answer there?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but what I will say is that historically, the United States has had a much higher percentage of its population that's foreign-born. Currently, it's about 13.9%. For much of U.S. history, it was anywhere between 20 to 30%. We actually had, for most of U.S. history, essentially open borders. Like, we did not start passing formal immigration laws until really like the 1900s. And so I think there's plenty of more room for the United States to grow and absorb immigrants, in particular because, like, going to the question of jobs, like, jobs are not a fixed sum. If you're talking about this idea of, like, well, if an immigrant gains a job, like an American loses a job, by that logic, if there's only one person left in America, their job is going to be super lucrative and they'll have access to all the jobs. But that's not how it works, right? Because immigrants increase labor supply, but they also increase labor demand, because when they earn money, they buy things. Like, immigrants don't decrease wages, the money that they earn.
Oh, come on, Armand. Are you really going to say that out loud? Are you really?
There's a reason when every survey of economists that looks at this question looks at it, and every study on this question overwhelmingly finds that immigrants increase wages because what they do, they're not as...
Wait, hold on. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Wait, let me finish my point.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. I apologize.
They're a complement for two reasons. So, like, one, what ends up happening is that when you have immigrants come in from the foreign countries, they complement native labor because native labor tends to speak English, is generally a little more educated, and increases demand for that labor. So, for example, if you're talking about like a Taco Bell or a fast food restaurant, what ends up happening is that folks that were born in the U.S. usually see wage gains because you can open up more stores and they tend to get promoted to things like manager. Additionally, vast majority, immigrants are far more likely to start businesses than native-born folks, and that entrepreneurship increases the total supply of jobs. And even if you don't look at any of that, the bottom line is, like, think about it this way. If I have a child and that child gets a job, is that child stealing a job from somebody else? No, because why are there jobs? Because that child has a job, makes money, and then it has to eat. It has to buy a house. It has to buy iPhones. Like, all those things, they spend that money that they earn. Human beings, they're not like a lump sum of jobs that people like carve up and take away. The reason we have jobs is because there are things that people produce and services they provide that people want. And so when there's more people, there's more demand for those services, right? Like, if we were on an island, like, let me put it this way. Would America suddenly get a lot richer if 90% of our population disappeared tomorrow? Obviously not, right? Like, we would be a lot poorer. And the idea that, like, there's a lump sum of jobs is silly. Also, on the question of, like, the law, I totally agree that violating the law is absolutely wrong. I think that part of the problem is that we've created a situation where literally the law has not been enforced for decades because you can't enforce it with the resources provided. So the law specifically says that, for example, people who immigrate illegally or detained at the border need to stay in detention camps. However, the law also says that you have to process them within a certain amount of time. And Congress has never allocated the resources to even have all the detention beds or the asylum officers or the judges. And so every president in modern history, including Donald Trump, has had to make prioritization about, like, what law they'll enforce and which one they won't, because they're contradictory of each other. That law that I talked about earlier was endorsed by the California Border Patrol Union, the National Border Patrol Union, specifically because it provided the resources to actually enforce the law. And that's what Kamala Harris wants to do, and that's what I support.
Okay, I want to make sure, JJ, that you would answer the first part, and then we could go to the question of that law.
Wait a minute. There's so much in there that I disagree with. I mean, I don't agree with not one thing. Not one thing. Number one, let's start with this. The immigration system does work. Does it need to be stripped down and ripped of all the loopholes that destroy American immigration? Absolutely. But you're incorrect. Under Donald Trump, the greatest border president in the history of mankind, in the history of America, I should know since I served 5 presidential administrations, Republicans included, and they did nothing. They bastardized everything. Let me tell you what it looked like under Donald Trump. Under Donald Trump, at the end of his term, when he got 25% of the wall built, 25%, that's it. He made the Northern Triangle in Mexico bend a knee, no more caravans. We were arresting 500 people a day. 500 people a day on the southern border, that's 2,000 miles, the northern border, that's 5,400 miles, and ICE was arresting and deporting tens of thousands of people. Tens of thousands. Every nation on planet Earth was taking back their savage, malcontent criminals that they never took back before. Donald Trump had it working. We were within 6 to 9 months. I know it's hard to believe because we've allowed 30 million people to destroy our nation in our borders. But Donald Trump was within 6 to 9 months of having the border completely secure. I don't want to hear about Speaker Johnson or any of those other bastards. I'm telling you, I lived it. I was there. I was not just a Border Patrol agent. I was a task force operator. I rose up in the ranks, became a senior leader in San Diego sector, worked the whole Arizona border, whole California border. I know what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm telling you The day Joe Biden took office, that border fell because I had 94 executive orders cascade down into my inbox, and I had to implement those unconstitutional orders, and I did it. I sabotaged them. I'll be honest. I didn't partake in any of it because I knew it was unconstitutional. And guess what we did? From the day one Joe Biden took office, we arrested over 5,000 people a day, up to 20,000 a day, every single day to present day. Present day. At the end of his term, 12 million illegal aliens will be arrested and released. Do you know how many illegal aliens I had contact with that I saw arrested and then deported or voluntary returned to Mexico in my whole career, 24 years? I would guess about 100,000. 100,000. Do you know how many I released onto the streets? Zero. Why? Because it's against the law. It's against the Immigration Nationality Act for 8 U.S.C. 1325. Can't do it. I can't release illegal aliens. We weren't releasing illegal aliens under President Trump because we had a system in place. Also, I want you and your audience to understand there's approximately 40,000 ICE beds right now. Border Patrol and ICE facilities that have 40,000 beds. Do you know how many beds are being used? Approximately zero. Zero. Why is that? Because we release them all onto the streets. Because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Mayorkas are traitors. And they did this to America on purpose. And this idea that I love, this drives me more crazy than anything, is when people tell me the illegal aliens, the people that are illiterate, the vast majority illiterate in their own language, can't read or write in their own language, can't speak English, and they are somehow more industrious than the greatest nation on planet Earth. That if they were so industrious and so amazing businessmen, why do they run from their third world cesspools into America? Because that's not true. They're not more industrious than us. They're not. And you want to talk about taking jobs and not depleting the wages? Come on, man. That is economics 101. You come in and
I studied and majored in economics. I've worked as an economist. There's a reason. Go to any economics 101 class, ask any professor. They will not tell you that immigrants decrease wages. Don't tell me.
Oh my God. Let me finish mine. I just want to be able to say this out loud, and I'll turn it over to you. I'm not trying to demean you. I'm just saying, number one, I don't really care what a bunch of communist professors in our communist education systems telling me. I'm living in the real world. I'm watching it. I'm seeing it happen. The idea, it's called supply and demand. I overload the supply of labor for the demand. The price decreases. That's capitalism 101. Socialism and communism is let's bring everyone in, everything unicorn and rainbows. I'm telling you that we are seeing economic decay, which we're all living, and no one can deny it. We are seeing societal decay. We're seeing crime skyrocket. We're seeing demographic shift in America. And you want to talk about what we did in 1924 to 1965, when you talked about history. That was 1924 Immigration Act basically shut down all legal and all illegal immigration and put quotas on legal. Why? Because we were balkanized as a nation. We had people from Germany, England, France, all the Western European nations, and they were balkanized, mainly white people. So it has nothing to do with race. They were balkanized. So we said, whoa, we're Americans. You learn English, you learn our cultures and our societal norms, and then we'll begin to have immigration again. And then 1965, the great lion of the Senate, the man that murdered the woman in the pond, Ted Kennedy, had sponsored or co-sponsored every immigration bill until his death, destroying the immigration system. It's historical.
Before Armand responds, it was the founding fathers who were warning about factionalism, so I understand what JJ is talking about here as far as making sure that we don't split up into, various competing tribes and that we do see ourselves as Americans. But going back, because I really want to separate a lot of these things that we're talking about here because there's just so much to go through. When we're talking about the money question that Armand was bringing up, Armand, you were talking about how there is not enough money to enforce the border correctly, and JJ was saying that in his experience when he was there, they were able to enforce it and they were able to deport all these people. So what exactly is the miscommunication here? Like, Armand, do you believe that JJ is not saying the truth, or that he's misspeaking, or what exactly do you see as being wrong with the way that he saw it when he was working there?
I mean, it's just false. Well, first of all, there's this conflation of like everybody's trying to cross the border as a legal immigrant. If you're an asylum seeker, it's 100% legal to seek asylum. And the larger issue, like you can disagree with asylum or agree with asylum, but it is legal to claim it based on the laws of the United States. The laws of the United States also say that you are supposed to be, when you make an asylum claim, be detained at the border, but our capacity to do that has been consistently overwhelmed. And even during the Trump administration, this idea that like we just immediately sent everybody back who tried to get asylum claims, I mean, it's just false. Like there are people, most of the people, for example, in Springfield, Ohio, that began in 2018 when Trump was president. And a lot of those people were claiming asylum and had asylum hearings and were able to stay in the United States while they had those asylum hearings. And the reason that those folks were out in the country is because Trump didn't immediately, everybody who was like showed up at the border, kick them out. He didn't detain them, he let them out because we didn't have the capacity to keep them in a single place and the capacity to process them in a timely manner. That was true then, and it's become more so true now because the U.S. economy's had the fastest recovery in the entire industrialized world. If you compare us to Germany, to France, to Canada, overwhelmingly, we've had the fastest post-COVID recovery of any other country. And that's brought a lot of demand and made the U.S. economy a magnet for a lot of people to come to. Going back to like the supply and demand thing on jobs, like, I don't know how to better explain it, but fundamentally, when you produce a good, it decreases the price of that good. Yeah, but a worker is not just a product, it is someone who's getting paid for their work. Where does demand come from? It comes from the fact that you, Lev, and I buy things, we purchase services. And so when we make money, we're working, we're increasing the supply of labor. But when we spend that money, we're increasing demand for that labor. And that is why immigration, in of itself, like the labor effect, does not increase or decrease wages. What does increase wages is the fact that it's complementary labor, so it makes native labor more valuable. And there's higher rates of entrepreneurship. But it's not because Americans are worse, it's just that it's a self-selection effect for the sort of person who's willing to, start the whole life over and move across to a different country and do all those things. It's like going to have a more risk-taking personality.
I want to make sure, though, Armand, when we're talking about this, that we don't disregard Well, I want to make sure we don't disregard what JJ was talking about when it comes to illiteracy. I know that in California there's been a big plunge in the literacy rate. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but if that is the case, what JJ was talking about, then that is a pretty serious problem, because you're not just talking about this blank slate where everybody just starts out equally in terms of their level of comprehension, so in terms of their literacy rate. If you do, in fact, have people who are completely illiterate, and as JJ said, illiterate in their own language, and if you have too many people who are like that, you know that our systems are not the most ideal when it comes to education. You could say it's for this reason or that reason, but regardless, if you can see that we have problems with our education system, then having people who are completely illiterate coming in here, that's going to throw things off kilter, wouldn't it?
I don't think it is true that the vast majority of people coming to the United States are illiterate.
At least 50%. Proven. Proven.
Okay.
How do we find this out, JJ? So if we were to research this,
the vast majority of them end up employed, and it's difficult to end up employed if you're completely illiterate. In any
Are they employed, Armand? Do you think they're employed right now? I'm telling you that 30 million people crossed into America. They have been given no work authorization document at all. The federal government has. So let me just, so everybody understands how this works. Okay, I'm an illegal alien from Haiti, Ecuador, Germany. I don't care. I come in and I claim asylum. And you're wrong on this, Armand. You cannot cross the border and claim asylum. You have to go to the embassy or the port of entry. So under Donald Trump and everyone else that claims asylum, somebody jumped the border fence and said, JJ, I claim asylum. Well, get in my car. I'm going to drive you to the port of entry, and you're going to present yourself there. And they're going to deal with you. And they're not going to allow you in. or parole you in. We never did parole. Parole's, it's abomination. The reason why asylum has been happening because we've allowed, through the policies of Biden and Harris, to allow anybody to jump the fence and go, I want asylum. Okay, well, you're released. It's against the law. You're not allowed to do that. Now, to go back and say, well, the people are, they're all smart and good, hardworking people. Well, that's a lie. It's an absolute bold-faced lie. I have been processing these people my whole career. I'm telling you, they don't know what day of the week or month or year they were born. They can't spell. They put an X down for their name because they don't know how to use a pen. I know it's shocking, but they don't know how to use a pen. I swear to you, to God Almighty, strike me dead. And I'm not talking about anomaly. I'm talking about every single one. And the ones that can't write, it looks like this third grade chicken scratch. They are illiterate in their own language. They cannot read, write, or do anything. Now, let me tell you what it looks like and what Biden and Harris has done. And I have, as you can tell by my tone, I have no love lost for illegal aliens. However, there is a moral component to this that drives me insane. I'm an illegal alien from Haiti or wherever. I come in. I tell you when I want asylum. The Border Patrol processes me as fast as they can. They get me out and they give me a notice to appear. And let's say I want to go to New York. The notice to appear in front of an immigration judge or an ICE officer is in 2032. 2032. I paroled in. Mayorkas gives me a parole, which we can get into later, but it's not like you think a parole is. The immigration parole is totally different. It's like apples and elephants, not even in the same room. But we parole you in for 90 days. What didn't the government give this Haitian man? They didn't give him a work authorization document. And in 90 days, when I can't see the immigration judge, because even if I wanted to, I can't get there because there's tens of thousands of more of me, millions more of me that can't get in front of the judge. And what happens in immigration legal status term? I become out of status. What is that in just layman's terms? I become an illegal alien. You have tens, not some, you have tens of millions of illegal aliens inside America that have no work authorization. So what did the Republicans, Democrats do? They created a market of slave labor. And to people that can be abused, they will not get any recourse for overtime. They will not get, if you're hurt, you will get nothing. And that has been the hallmark of America on immigration. We have abused these people. We have welcomed them in under false pretense, told them you're going to get asylum. Listen, right now, we are eclipsing 5 million asylum cases backlog. Do you know how many asylum officers there are? 900. 900. And before you say, well, the system's broken, the system was not broken until Biden came in and destroyed it. Under President Trump, we didn't have 5 million backlog. We didn't. We just didn't. And ultimately, I want to ask this question. And you and I can argue about jobs and economy. Ultimately, my question, this is the bare minimum question I have. How many illegal aliens or let me repeat that. How many legal immigrants do you want in America every year? And when you give me that number, whatever it is, I'm going to say, okay, if it's a law, I'm going to say, okay, I don't have to like it, but it's the law. What are we going to do with the other billions that want to come in? And you're telling me they don't want to come in. I'm telling you, all of my friends that are investigative journalists, all of my friends on the border that call me every day, there are caravans of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people pouring into the Darien Gap in Central America and moving up. You are looking at 30 million in 4 years. 4 years. Kamala Harris is the border czar. She doesn't even have any idea what's going on. None. And she gets in office, I will predict that 30 million will look like child's play because we'll double that in 4 years. And again, I come back full circle. What is the number? And when you tell me that number, what are you going to do to ensure to me, an American, that you're not going to let one more person over that wall illegally after you hit your maximum for legal immigration? And the left can never ever give me a number, because they know if they give me a number, then they have to shut the border down. And how do you do that? You build a wall, you have strong enforcement, you put the military there, and you have sovereign nation. What's wrong with a sovereign nation? Maybe that's the biggest question I have. Why is the left and the rhinos all afraid of having a sovereign nation? What's wrong with that? I really want to ask you two. What's wrong with me wanting a sovereign nation with secure borders? And I know who comes in and who comes out. Tell me where I'm wrong in that.
Well, first, the immigration question, once again. Armand, I know in the beginning you said that it would be more of an exponential thing where the migrants would pay for themselves as far as raising the economy up. But if you had to, like, pick any number, what would it be?
Sure. I think there's always a question of like physical infrastructure. And so while I do think immigration increases the economy and makes all of us more prosperous, you're never going to build like the amount of roads and schools and hospitals that just open the border to everybody in the world. You also never have the ability to like vet everybody, and you want to make sure that, you know, they're not terrorists and stuff like that. I said it earlier, historical levels of foreign-born citizens, foreign-born residents in the United States tended to hover, I believe, around 20%. They're around 13%. My answer would be we should allow enough people to hit like those historical norms. Again, you talked about this period of 1924 to 1965, but like, what happened after 1965 and into the present, the United States became the preeminent, most wealthy, prosperous, powerful nation on earth. So the idea that letting immigrants into the United States was some sort of terrible thing, it kind of goes against the historical.
But why were we great? Were we great because of immigrants, or were we great because of Americans? That's a very important, valid question. What?
I'm an American. My parents are Americans.
No. I said that, but why was it? Well, why was America great? Was it because we imported all the third world into our country that made us great? That's absurd. That's absurd. But you won't answer my question. What's the number?
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
America is great because whether you were born here, like I was, or you were born in like a tiny village in Poland, like my father was, if you're willing to work hard, you believe in our values, you support this country, and you believe it, and you love it, you can do anything. And you can become an American, and that's what makes this place special compared to France or Germany. You'll never become a German. You'll never become French, no matter how hard you try if you weren't born there.
But your father came legally, though, right? He came legally.
He did, and he was a refugee.
That's a big difference. So I think that we're conflating that, and that comes into it. I'm not talking about legal immigration. Again, I'm asked the same question again. I really would like you to answer this.
Without the role status, like we talked about, is legal. Asylum seeking, if you do it at a port of entry, is legal.
Yes, it is legal.
People who seek asylum.
Okay, but if 30 million people seek asylum and we can't handle it, why do we have to take them? If you follow international law, those people crossed at least 4 or 5 nations that they have to claim asylum by international law. You don't get to choose the country you choose asylum at. So that's the bogus thing that no one wants to talk about. My ultimate question, though, to you is infrastructure, jobs, hospitals, blah, blah, blah. What is the number that you think you said it should get to 20%. Okay, so that's another, I'm going to say 30 million, 25-ish million. So you're saying that we need another 25 million legal immigrants in America over, I don't care if it's a year or 10 years. Parse it out, whatever you think. I agree with you. Let's just, for this sake of argument, I agree. What are you going to do to ensure that it's not going to be 25 million and one? Because as an American, I agreed with you, and I said, okay, let's go, Armand, let's do it. Now you have to convince me that you're not going to let 25 million and one in.
Well, I think part of it is, like, I mean, you talked about the number of asylum officers, for example, or judges, and there aren't enough of them. Like, that bill that was endorsed by the Border Patrol would have included a lot more funding to hire a lot more asylum officers, hire a lot more judges. The idea that, like, under Trump, it all went away. The massive decline in, like, border crossings under Trump largely happened because of COVID. And what you've seen there's also this, like, return to Mexico policy, for example, worked for a very brief period of time, but then Mexico decided they don't want to do it. And now Biden's executive orders and more cooperation with Mexico and other countries has actually decreased legal immigration.
No.
We actually seeing it fall significantly in the last few months since those executive orders were passed. So I think my answer
Armand, he's averaging over 200,000 illegal aliens a month. That's what he lowered it to, 200,000 illegal aliens a month, and then another 200 to 400,000 crossed the border undetected, absconded, because he ripped away the Border Patrol. 1,600 miles of the 2,000-mile border does not have one single Border Patrol agent on it. Not one. Not one.
Why?
I'm
a Democrat. I believe in fully supporting public services with public revenues, and that means public safety, which means hiring more Border Patrol agents, which means hiring fentanyl detection machines. Buying fentanyl detection machines. It means hiring asylum officers. Like, the bottom line is that we need to provide the infrastructure at every level to be able to enforce the border. But part of it also is allowing for avenues for legal immigration. So, for example, when we did that parole effort in Haiti, what we saw is because we created a legal avenue for people to apply if they could get a sponsor in the United States, illegal immigration from Haiti dramatically dropped because people then understood that it was much better for them if they tried to attempt this legal process, waited for it to process, and get through that way, as opposed to just trying to illegally cross the border. And so by creating like safe legal pathways, you actually dramatically decrease the incentive for illegal immigration. So
that's not true. No, that's not true. It's not true. It's absolutely every statistic and immigration data point, all done by CBP and DHS, contradicts everything you just said. Everything you said. They created
illegal immigration went down after the parole status was enacted.
Number one, you're using the term parole as DHS has bastardized it. Let me make sure everybody's clear. Parole is not state and local government, law enforcement, paroling someone in. If you're good behavior, you get to stay. Parole is done by a case-by-case basis in America, and you're brought in for a very specific time, like a week. So if I'm a German national and I have a brain tumor and the best doctor in the world's in America, I can get paroled in. Or as me, I made a narcotic arrest and I want to bring in a material witness. I will bring that material witness in, and then I'll make sure that material witness leaves. That's parole. He's lied to you. Everyone uses parole as if it's this magical beast.
Never lied to you.
No, not you. I'm talking about DHS lies to you and says parole. Let me just try to put it this way. In my whole 24-year career, do you know how many times I used parole? And I was one of the top producers of narcotic arrest and human smuggling arrest in the sector. Ran incredible task force. 0. I don't even know anybody in the Border Patrol that used parole. Do you know that? I don't even know them. I've asked all my friends, hey man, did you do parole? Of course not, JJ. No one did parole. That's like maybe 1,000 times a year across the whole nation. No one ever used that. It's a lie. It's a boondoggle. Asylum and parole don't go together. It's a lie. I did this for my life. I know exactly what's happening on the border. No one's going to tell me anything differently. The pathways that you're talking about, sir, are illegal. You cannot fly people in on CBP One app or take airplanes and fly them in the middle of the night and say they're asylum because I want to call them asylum. No, it's illegal. The federal government has already admitted under oath on FOIA that they have flown in about 1 million people illegally into America. Now, why would your government do that? Why would your government illegally fly people into the middle of the night? We haven't even discussed in this because there's no one on the border. You talked about fentanyl. Hard narcotics have come in. We have tripled the overdose deaths since Joe Biden has taken in. It's a direct line from the open border to overdose deaths. You and I haven't even talked about the child sex trafficking. Over 500,000 children have been brought into America and lost under Joe Biden. Under Donald Trump, this was all derived from President Obama. We average about 10,000 unaccompanied alien children a year. Tightly regulated and policy, DNA testing, background checks, everything. Every kid was perfectly put into a position where they were not going to get sexually destroyed. And now, under Joe Biden, no DNA testing. Actually, I have to ask the man if he will consent. If he doesn't consent, I can't DNA test him, and I let him go with the children. The first year under Joe Biden, 125,000 unaccompanied alien children. So we went to 12 times the number that was in my last year. Now we've been averaging 130 to 140,000 children, and they have lost them all. This open border is a catastrophe. I am totally on board with you, sir. If you have legal immigration, I'm all for it. The people that I used to walk up on the border, and I would say, sir, U.S. Border Patrol, before I could even get to show them my badge or say, hey, I want to talk to you, bam, here's my naturalization certificate, sir. They had it laminated. They were so proud. I'm so proud to be an American. And I'm like, hey, dude, rock on, brother. Go on. And you know what they tell me? And I'm going to tell you this, is every time I ran into one of them on the border or in the interior, you know what they all said? Every last one of them. Sir, please arrest all of the illegal aliens because my wages are being destroyed.
So
every last one of them.
I gotta step in here for a second, guys. So I don't think Armand disagrees that illegal immigration is wrong. Armand's contention here is that there is not enough money and energy and support being put into these systems. What I'm trying to figure out, though, is that under Trump, was there a lot of this money and support, and under Biden there wasn't, but now there would be with this migrant bill? Like, I'm trying to figure out where exactly it ended up going down.
No, there was never any money. We were always underfunded, but under Trump, what he did, this is what people can't get their brain wrapped around. He went down, he did two things. He built the wall. You need a physical structure. I saw it, I lived it. I saw guys get their heads caved in, shot at, stabbed, fought because we had no border barrier. What he did, the second thing he did, he went down to the Northern Triangle nations, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Mexico, and the rest of the world at the same time, and said, you will stop sending your caravans. And you will also take back every single one of your savage criminals because they didn't take them back before. And you know what they all did? I was there. I watched this happen in real time. They laughed at Donald Trump. You know what Donald Trump said? In one day, he said, all of your financial foreign aid ends right now. And you know what? In 24 hours we had, I swear to you, the caravan stopped. Mexico and those northern triangles put up their military, and they have border patrol. Believe it or not, those racist border patrol countries, they had border patrol. And all of the nations across America took back all of their savages, and their ICE agents and deportations officers were flying around the world. They're called 21-day trips, dropping off all of the criminal savages that we let roam in our country for decades because other countries wouldn't take them back, and we returned them. Now, do we need more funding? Absolutely. Do we need a new immigration system? Absolutely not. Do we need to clean it up? Loopholes? Absolutely. And then I am open. And I don't say this half-heartedly. I am wide open to, if you think that we need more workers, we need whatever, I'm all open for a very honest discussion, which I don't think we need to have here, but I'm open to it. If you think it's $5 million a year, okay, tell me why it needs to be $5 million a year. But I want our government to choose. You need to fill what we need. I'm not taking in the poor. Look, because the Statue of Liberty says, give me your poor, I don't care. That's a bunch of Frenchmen put that on on a statue. I follow the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And it never says in there, give me your poor and your huddled masses, because we want all of them. I don't want them. I don't. And as an American, here's the beauty of our country. Armand, you can disagree with me and I can disagree with you, but the Constitution and the law dictates how our country moves forward. If the law, I don't like the law, then I need to put representatives to change it. But you win, Armand. You win because the law states it has to be. I'm telling you, as an American, the law states X, Y, and Z. I want the law followed. And if it needs to be changed and it changes adversely to my beliefs, then JJ, go pound sand. It's the law. I have to follow it. I just want it reciprocated to me. Not because of feelings or I want this person or that person. I want the world to be unicorns and rainbows. But I'm telling you, in 24 years of arresting rapists and murderers and pedophiles and drug dealers ad nauseum, the world isn't rainbows and unicorns. And I'm going to finish with this, and I'm going to tell you, of the 12 million, not the 30 million, just the 12 million that are in DHS data, I'm just stating DHS data. Let me tell you just couple categories of what's coming in our country. 200,000 Chinese nationals, which a significant percentage are PLA soldiers, 200,000 Russians, over 1 million Venezuelans, over 500,000 Haitians, 250,000 special interest aliens. In layman's terms, those are terrorists. Do you know how many special interest aliens I encountered in 24 years? 5. And I'm telling you, and everyone that I know that talks to me about this says that 250,000 number is a joke. Try 1 million terrorists, minimum. Thousands and thousands of gang members. 500,000 that we know of, unaccompanied children from babies to 17 years old, are being sex trafficked and lost in America because of this open borders debacle at the hands of Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas, funded by, quote, my side. So we can talk about all the superficial stuff, but ultimately, I want a nation that is secure, that has sovereign borders, and that is for America first. And I don't think how anybody can argue. You don't have to like me, but gosh dang it, do we not have secure borders? Do we not have a sovereign nation? If we don't have that, then we're a piece of land that people trample on. And guess what we've become? A piece of land that 30 million people have trampled on in the last 4 years. And there's no excuse for it. There's nothing. And I will tell you this, Armand, I was under George Bush. Disgusting. If Donald Trump did what Biden's doing, or Bush did what Biden's doing, which he did a part of, but nothing to this level, I would be the first guy railing against Donald Trump. And I am a MAGA first guy, and I would rail against him. I would rail nonstop against him for destroying our country and destroying the sovereignty of America. Absolutely. This is not partisan. This is just, I want America to thrive. And if that means bringing in 5 million people legally, so be it. Pass the law. I'm all in. But I don't want 5 million and one. I don't. I want 5 million. That's it. Or 10 million. That's it. But the law states what it states. If we do not have law and order, we have chaos. And we have chaos today.
I have the following question for Armand.
Mm-hmm.
What JJ was talking about when it comes to threatening to get rid of foreign aid for these countries. If all of a sudden we were to take a time machine and make you president, Armand, and have JJ be your trusted advisor and give you this idea, like, hey, JJ, if you threaten them with this, then they're surely to stop these illegal crossings. And according to JJ, that's what Trump did, and it ended up working out. If you were in charge, would you not do the same? If, it's not going to stop the legal migration, but it does stop the illegal migration. Unless you disagree with something that JJ said specifically, I want to focus on this, threat of getting rid of foreign aid for those countries.
The fact is that didn't actually happen as JJ described it. Donald Trump consistently would talk a really big game and say, like, I'm going to take away all your foreign aid, and then this will happen. In practice, you would have big press releases, individual announcements, but it is a fact, for example, that the entirety of the Trump administration, not a single illegal Chinese national was sent back to China because China just said no. And Trump wanted to cut a deal with them on soybeans and brag about it, so it just didn't happen.
No, that's not true.
One thing at a time. So
the first deportation flight for a Chinese illegal immigrant in the last something like 20 or 30 years just happened recently. It's very rare instance. And what you see in Central American countries is that there are periods of time where they'll take more, they'll take less. Venezuela, there's been a very on and off effort around it. There's a deal that Biden cut around sanctions where he reduced sanctions in exchange for them saying, okay, we'll take more undocumented immigrants back. And then Maduro stole the election, but part of the reason that the sanctions haven't fully been slapped back is because they don't want more effort. They want to be able to control the migration situation. And it does speak to a larger truth, which is that most of what affects migration flows is not what we physically do at the border. A border wall doesn't matter if somebody can go to the port of entry and say, I want asylum. And it's true that international law does not dictate that they have to apply for asylum. We have to accept asylum. They could apply for elsewhere, but U.S. law specifically does. And so that's part of updating and modernizing U.S. laws. You could say in U.S. law that they have to apply for asylum somewhere else, but that's not what it does currently. but it's just like international cooperation is really key on it. So, for example, like Remain in Mexico, Mexico agreed to it for a very specific and small percentage of population of undocumented migrants, and then after 6 months, basically like decide not to go forward with it. When Trump promised to do it again when he's reelected, Mexico laid out a whole set of conditions that include things like legalizing all undocumented immigrants in the U.S. currently, and massive changes to U.S. policy, things that like Trump certainly would not agree to. And so the idea that it's as simple as like, oh, we can just turn off the foreign aid, like foreign aid is a very small percentage of our budget, and it is not a. There are other things that we use the foreign aid to get leverage on. We certainly don't give foreign aid to Venezuela. We've sanctioned them, for example, and so it just is. It's an oversimplified story. The idea that like Trump just like came in and said, "I'll take your aid," and they all cooperated.
But they did, because I was there. You're talking theoreticals. I was there on the border,
No,
my
I'm
man.
telling you what happened.
Wait,
after.
JJ, quick question. I have a quick question for
Hold on a
JJ.
second. I don't agree with anything he said. And you want to talk about Venezuela? The reason why we don't deport anybody to Venezuela because Maduro told that old bag of skin, Biden, that doesn't know what planet he's on, go pound sand, sir. You were not taking back anybody. You know what he said? Okay. The idea that Trump did not stop with his sanctions and holding foreign aid and all that is laughable. I was there. I wasn't in San Francisco. I wasn't in New York thinking about it. I was on the border. And then every day I came in at 5 o'clock in the morning to help run my station that I was in charge of as a senior leader. I would get the 24-hour report across America. Not the southern border as they like to parse it, north, south, east, and west borders. And I saw the numbers. We couldn't believe it. The first day that I saw it, I went to my boss. I had a guy over me, awesome guy. And I said, I think there's a typo. DC made a typo. And we called up and they go, no. Everything's stopping. Look at it across America. And day after day after day after day after day, we watched the numbers just fall off a cliff. Nobody's crossing. Why? Because they were deterred by coming up the Darien Gap, by coming up through Mexico, because Mexico was deterred. And the idea, the idea that America should ever listen to anything Mexico or any of those third world countries say to us is absurd. Hey, Mexico, you need my money to survive. You need us. I will shut the border down and your economy will crumble within 30 days. Your whole northern states will die. In 30 days, will die because you need us. We don't need you. So why do we continue to act as if other people, other nations, their feelings, their desire to inundate our nation with foreign nationals illegally is okay? Again, I keep coming back to this, but you won't answer this. I keep coming back. We can talk about all of this other stuff underneath, but the big question is, why won't you tell me what we have to do to keep all of the illegal aliens out of our country? Or do you go against what you have been saying and you want the whole world to come into America? You've already said it can't happen. You already said that we can't handle it infrastructure-wise. So I keep coming back to this question. I'm a racist. I'm a xenophobe. I'm all these things. All I'm saying is I want the law to be followed. Right now, it's 1.2 million 1.2 million legal immigrants. I don't want 1.2 million and one. What do we do to stop that 1 times a billion coming into our country? And the left, Biden, Harris, they have no answer. None. I'm telling you that the guy that I'm going to vote for, the guy everyone hates and they're trying to kill, literally trying to kill, has already shut the border down one time. I lived it. I was on the border. I love when people try to tell me, well, that didn't happen. That's simplistic. That didn't happen. Oh, really? I was there. Not only was I there, I was the guy that got all the data pushed down and I pushed it back out to all the troops and made strategic law enforcement posture decisions day in and day out on those numbers. So I'm telling you, the border was almost 100% secure. If he would got his second term, that border wall would already been up. We would funnel everyone through the ports of entry and they would follow the law. It's simple as that. We had complete, total control. I need you to understand what 500 people looks like crossing the border. It looks like a drip on a faucet. Our agents were bored on the border. We turned our agents loose on the city streets, the highways and interstates to get any kind of human smuggling and narcotic smuggling that was happening. We had control. For the first time in 24 years, I was on a winning team. I was supported by my president. I was supported by the management up at the top in DC. And right now, no one feels supported. There's an epidemic of suicides in the Border Patrol. You can't hire Border Patrol agents. You're giving them $30,000 bonuses to hire, and they cannot give it away. We are at the height of the United States Border Patrol. We had over 21,000 Border Patrol agents. We are now surpassing 15,000 and decreasing. Why? Because nobody wants to work for this treasonous group of people that run our country now and that want the next 4 years. They hate Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas. They hate them. They despise them. That's how we feel. And because we're the frontline guys, and you, Biden and Harris has called us vile names, chants no more deportations with a bunch of other hooligans. It's all over the place. We've had it. Law enforcement has had it. And you know what? Law enforcement, particularly Border Patrol, we've had it with this mamby-pamby stuff. You either make a decision of what the law is and we enforce the law, or you go change the law. But before the law gets changed, you have to accept that this is the limit. If you want the limit changed, then change it. But ultimately, I come back, Armand, I want to know why, what are you going to do to ensure the border secure? That's it. That's the only question I want to ask. And to ensure that no one else comes in the border illegally. I think that is a valid question to ask in this debate that we're having.
Well, Armand was talking about more money being given to this problem and that would solve it, but I don't want to speak for him. Like, Armand, how much money, let's say, or how much resources do you personally think it would take to get the situation into the kind of tip-top shape that JJ is talking about, regardless of whether you agree with him about, how Trump was handling the situation, if we're talking about, like, right now?
Sure. Well, also three things. So just quickly on the Trump thing, if you look at it, like, which are produced, again, by DHS, by the Border Patrol of attempted crossings, under Trump, there were ebbs and flows, but the overall trend was going upwards right up until COVID. COVID shut down all international stuff and everything basically closed down. Once COVID started passing, the numbers started going back up and up. And so the idea that like Trump was able to magically solve this and he just ended the crisis, the data you're referring to does not show that. It was really just like the global pandemic that shut down migration globally. The second thing I'll say is that like we need to not only is there a resource question, so like you talked about you can't hire enough Border Patrol agents, but you talked earlier about like, wow, well, they'll get a hearing for 2032. The reason they get a hearing for 2032 is because one, there's not enough asylum officers and frankly, I think like part of the executive order for what Biden did is make that bar higher, so more people get rejected earlier, which is a right change to make given the large volume of people coming in. But two is like the number of judges that can process this is just not big enough, and it creates a backlog that in of itself then creates more of an incentive, right? Like people are not going to be trying to come in to claim asylum if they know that they get a hearing within a week and they get kicked out. But if they know that like their worst case is they get 10 years in the United States with a work permit, which most of them do end up getting within a year. It's slow, but most of the folks do get work permits who apply for asylum and are in that process in the United States. So I think part of it is that when you provide resources, those resources actually create a deterrent effect, which reduces the strain on the system. And then the final thing is you need to make legal changes. And part of that is like you don't like the parole status, but I think it's a great illustration of how when you provide legal avenues for people, they pursue those legal avenues, which allows you to control the flow of immigration, as opposed to making it so that people try to attempt to come in illegally. And so, like, big picture, the way I would say it is like, one, you need to make resource efforts to provide for more Border Patrol, but also for the legal infrastructure for the whole system across the board. But then two, you need to make legal changes so that like things like the asylum law they alluded to, like I'm not an expert on asylum law, but I do think it's reasonable to say, for example, that you should apply for asylum in other countries before crossing into the United States and applying there, updating and modernizing asylum law, but also making it so that people can come in legally. It is functionally impossible for folks for a lot of places around the world to just apply legally.
Well, Armand, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if we take away right now the asylum situation and just focus on the actual border protection, what would you personally want to be done there to ensure that it's not going to be like 5,000,001 or whichever number JJ was talking about?
Well, I think the vast majority of people, the reason we have that border crisis is like the vast majority of folks are applying for asylum and trying to get asylum.
Oh yeah, but forgetting asylum, if we're just talking about like...
You're creating a huge strain on the system because there's so many people trying to come in, right? And so if you decrease if you are able to process them faster and decrease the incentive to do that, then you reduce the strain on the border as a whole, and you allow Border Patrol agents to focus on like the people who are still coming in, but it's going to be a much smaller number.
Okay.
Right? Like,
how about we do this?
Mm-hmm.
How about we do this? How about I agree with everything that you said, and we pour money. We don't send $200 billion to Ukraine and trillions of dollars to the Middle East, and we focus on judges, immigration officers, blah, blah, blah. Everything that you just said, you get. Everything. There's now 10,000 immigration judges. We're running courts 24/7, night court, everything you want. We still have not addressed the fact that your president and your vice president do not want to shut the border down. Because if it's me, if Lev came to me and said, JJ, Armand is going to be your advisor, but you're going to make the decisions. And he wants to talk to you about, we need to increase legal immigration. I would come to you, Armand, and say, okay, that's a discussion that we're going to have, but right now, and I promise you, we're going to have that discussion and we're going to make a decision one way or the other. And I'm going to listen to you thoroughly. But right now, Armand, I need you to get on board with me and we are going to shut the border down right now. Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem with that?
How do you define shutting down the border?
No one comes in. No one comes in. None. Asylum, nobody comes in. You know why? Because it's not good for America. It's not good for America. And I'm president. If it does not benefit America, we all agree that it's chaos right now. Let me give you a data point. 5 million illegal aliens have gone through the process to get some kind of relief through the court system. And they even had appeals. 5 million have been ordered deported and they refuse to leave. We have chaos in America. So until I get that chaos finished, when I say secure the border, I mean there's not a swinging dick coming in America. Nope. If you're not legally allowed in, you ain't coming in. You want asylum? There's 5 other nations you got to go to. Done. America does not need to follow any other laws except for, is this good for America? Is it? No, it's not. So I want the border shut down. And then I come to you, Armand, and say, okay, the border, in 30 days, I can have the border completely, I can have it in 48 hours, shut down. Armand, the border's completely shut down. Now, let's you and I talk. How many do you think we need? Tell me, convince me that it helps our nation economically. And if I agree with you, I go, absolutely. Me as America First patriot, I think we need 5 million illegal aliens. We don't have enough agricultural. We don't have enough nurses, whatever it is. But, Armand, the stipulation is we choose who comes in. Not 80-year-old grandma that I want to come in to start sucking off of our Social Security as my 80-year-old grandma gets less Social Security money because they're depleting it. That's the argument that I'll have with you, the discussion I'll have with you. But right now, the United States of America does not have a faucet leak. We have a giant main got severed and water is just flooding our nation. And everyone wants to talk about everything except the giant flood that's coming in. Why don't we address that? And then we'll address everything else. But why don't we take care of our house first? My house has a basement. If it's flooding, I don't tell my wife and son, don't worry about it. We'll worry about the yard will get watered tomorrow. And my wife's like, what in the hell are you talking about? Our house is being destroyed. We're going to drown. No, don't worry about it. Or do I shut the main off, pump the water out, dry my house out, and then go, What are the other problems we need to address? Why don't we do that? I don't think that's a crazy thing to ask. I want my borders secure. I don't want terrorists in my country. I don't want gang members from Venezuela. Venezuela has a 22-year low on murder. 22-year low on murder. Why? Because they're all here. I can go through a litany.
Lying.
What?
I mean, part of Maduro's just lying. Like,
okay, let's say he's lying, and let's say he's lying, and it's half that. I'm looking at Venezuelans. I can go on for an hour. Venezuelans murder, raping, and assaulting U.S. citizens across America, taking over neighborhoods and apartments in 5 or 6 known states right now. Known. There'll be 5 or 10 more in the next month that we'll find out about. Taking over. I don't think that's good. I don't. In Aurora, Colorado, you have thousands of gang members from Venezuela. Do you know how many police officers you have in Aurora, a city of 400,000 people? You have 748 police officers. Good luck. Good luck. That's why they're going.
I want to make sure Armand can answer the question, though.
Yeah.
So, Armand, as far as securing the border the way that J.J. said, after you guys have fully agreed with the numbers, after that, would you then be for this complete shutting of the border, like J.J. said?
Well, the reason I asked is, like, when you say shut down the border, there's, like, a zillion trucks that go back and forth across the border for, like, trade and commerce.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's
so
fine.
When you say shut down, it's like I wanted to get a range of it. But if you're saying
shut down, I want everything that cannot come through the port of entry legally, I want it shut down. That's why we have ports of entry. Ports of entry are America's front door. And if you don't think that's important or a wall, then let's rip our doors off our apartments and our homes and just live free. That's a fallacy. Do I want trade to go back and forth? Of course, we want that. I don't want, because we have no immigration officers or not enough to check the cars and the trains and the airplanes. So we have tons of narcotics, all kinds of weapons, all kinds of people coming in. How about we just get control of what the hell's going on in America? And Armand, I will concede, maybe I'm wrong about legal immigration. Maybe it needs to be more. I am willing to have that conversation, but you don't seem to be willing to shut the border down to have that conversation.
Well,
and
we don't know that
why.
yet. So Armand,
Well,
if we're talking about trade,
the U.S. does have, like, international treaty obligations that we can't just say, like, no asylum. And I'm not saying that as a, like, namby-pamby, oh, the UN is good, but, like, there's a very tenuous balance around the world where if these treaties are maintained, if the U.S. withdraws from it, other countries withdraw from it, and it causes a lot of chaos. So caveating that we do have to operate within that framework, I think if there is a deal on the table for, like, reforming the legal immigration system, providing the resources to process asylum claims, stuff like that, yeah, I think that would absolutely be reasonable to say, like, we need to have a pause on the border, depending on,
but you still won't commit.
Like,
you still won't commit. It's unbelievable, actually.
Well, I don't know what I'm committing to. It's like,
okay. I want to address the elephant in the room over here. I want to address the elephant in the room. I think
address the elephant in the room.
Yes, I think it's important to address the elephant in the room. You guys come from completely different backgrounds, and just observing this from a very, like, guttural, animal-like, animal instinct point of view, it seems like, Armand, you're more comfortable with using certain words than other words. And same thing with JJ. Like, certain conceptions that you guys have about the world determine how you would even talk about things, where to say something like, shutting the border down, sealing the border, and I don't know, I'm being armchair psychologist here for a second. I think that maybe, Armand, the reason why those words seem bad to you is because you do feel sorry for people who are on the other side. I think that is something that's going on. I could be wrong about it, but I almost think, like, if you were to use words like that, words that would imply any kind of, like, use of force, you would imagine maybe, like, a poor migrant family that wants to get through, and, Uncle Sam is, just, putting his palm, next to their face and saying no. Now, that's just my assumption. I could be wrong, but in more of a guttural sense, that may be what's going on, but you tell me.
I've never really liked the charity case for immigration because I've always been very proud of my family and what we've done in this country. And I've never seen it as like we got this amazing handout and we were so poor and struggling. Like we came here, we worked incredibly hard. My parents, I like worked every summer with my father on hardwood flooring since I was like a little child. And the reason I support immigration is because I see how great it has been for me and my family, but also great for America. My dad actually is like ironically, a giant Trump supporter, small business guy, created a lot of jobs. And I love him. Even he loves me, even though we disagree. But it's not a thing. So I understand there's a liberal impulse around that, and there are people who there are many people on the left, for example, who are less interested in like how can immigration benefit America? How do we create legal pathways? And more just like people very allergic to enforcement, don't like enforcing the law. They're the same people who like don't cry when you like force them to pay fare on the subway and stuff like that. I'm not that part of the left. I would say the reason I try to like narrow it down is like, oh, I know what I'm committing to. When people say shut down the border, it like the image a lot of people get is literally like we're gonna have like Border Patrol agents like arm to arm across the physical border.
Yep,
and no one's
that's what I want.
Okay, but then you said earlier that like trucks can't get through or something like
No,
that.
no.
Yeah.
Border Patrol doesn't. Okay, listen. Border Patrol doesn't work ports of entry. We work between the ports of entry. We should have the military down there. No one crosses the border. And I keep coming back to this. And you're a smart guy, and I've enjoyed this conversation because I like to have my ideas pushed. I really do. It sharpens me, and I'm sure. I hope that you feel the way that it sharpens you. So that's the. And I'm not in any way demeaning anything you're saying. In fact, I agree with quite a bit of stuff. But what I'm having the trouble though with, Armand, is I keep giving you an olive branch and saying I will work with you, and I will actually come over the line to you and say, what is the number you want? But you can't tell me that you'll want the border secure, whatever that may. Take Trump out of it. Trump's out of it.
No,
I just want the border secure. I don't want anybody crossing the border that cannot cross legally. Why are you opposed to that?
I'm not. I was trying to be. I thought you were asking for like shut down of all asylum claims, for example. We can't do that.
I want legal immigration. Asylum is part of that. But I cannot in good faith when I know, because I worked it. I talked to the guys now, asylum officers. I have Border Patrol agents that were cross-designated. Everyone tells me, everyone in the business, that 90+% of all these asylum claims are fraudulent. They're based on economic need. That is not asylum claim. It's not. Economics is not. Do I wish that we didn't have poverty and suffering in the world? Of course I do. But in order to take care of everyone in the world, I know that my brothers and sisters in America will suffer greatly. So I want the border shut down. I don't care how that sounds or looks or the images. I want that shut down, and I want legal immigrants to be able to come into America, whatever that number is, because, and I'll give you a great example, you and your family come over and want the American dream. Why do we handcuff or undercut legal immigrants when they have to combat jobs with illegal immigrants and cut their wages? Why? I don't think that's fair. We welcomed you into our country as a legal resident, has all of the constitutional rights that I have and deserves every last one of them. Why would I want to hamper that new brother and sister into my country? I don't. Therefore, I want a secure border because I want not only Americans to prosper, but I want the newly arriving Americans that have come here legally to have all of the opportunities that me and my son and my wife have. All of them. Not some, all. And the way to do that is to have law and order, and therefore you have freedom and opportunity. That's all I want. I don't, all this other stuff that you and I have talked about it's not important. It's very important. But the big part, the big question is the border has to be secure in order to do any of this stuff. The reason why there's asylum backlog is because Biden has allowed them in. He knew this. This is not, look, get Biden out of the way. We know that he's not running the country. Okay. He's not there. You got Kamala Harris and you have Mayorkas. Mayorkas is a highly intelligent man, highly intelligent. Everything they have done has been strategic. They knew this was going to happen. They knew it. Mayorkas has been in the immigration business since 2008 under Obama. He created, Mayorkas has alone, fact check me, has created every immigration policy from 2008 to present day. DACA, prosecutor discretion, the abuse asylum, the bastardization of parole, CBP-1 app, catch and release, on and alternative to detention. I could go on ad nauseum what he has done because I know immigration law. I know policy like the back of my hand. I know what he did. He worked within DHS and bastardized all these policies and ignored law to create this. This is a man-made, intentional, strategic, and purposeful destruction of the American immigration system. So I wrote a whole book on it. That's my whole subtitle.
Invaded.
Intentional destruction.
That's the name of the book.
Yeah. Invaded, the intentional destruction of the American immigration system. And I lay it out, best-selling book, not because they love me, best-selling book on Amazon, because I told the truth and everything's cited. They've done this on purpose.
So for Armand, there's a lot of things that are being talked about right now, which some of which you may know, some of which you may not know, like the CBP-1 app situation. I don't know if you've dug deep into that. But let's assume that these are things that you are yet to discover, and you're going to look them up, and then you're going to make your own mind up whether or not, it makes sense or not. All of that aside, if we are just, again, going back to, would you be in support of having this completely secure border, obviously with trade, and with a much more perfected version of the asylum process that JJ was talking about? Yeah. Once the asylum process is there, would you then be for this extremely tight and restricting and hermetic migration seal with trade and everything like that working?
Mm-hmm. I don't want anyone to cross the border illegally, right? I want people to be able, through a safe and orderly process, to be able to apply legally to come to the United States, and the United States should be able to determine based on its needs.
I agree.
Be able to come here, and then anybody else should not be allowed in legally. I think JJ and I are going to disagree about the details of how to best accomplish that, but I don't disagree that that's the goal.
But even in terms of the details, if we are talking about having this kind of security level, mm-hmm. What would be your personal opposition to that level of security when it comes to keeping the border hermetically sealed?
Well, I think the vast majority of people who cross, right, they're not people who are sneaking through. They're applying for asylum. I think I'm trying to delineate the difference. JJ's okay if they go apply to asylum at ports of entry, but not by using the CBP-1 app. So maybe explain to me why.
Why? Because there's no vetting. Do you understand there's no vetting? CBP-1 app is my iPhone. Right. I get on my iPhone and I make a reservation like I would on Open Table. There's no vetting.
From me going to a port of entry and applying, I apply for asylum.
Well, number one, I don't think. Well, when you come to when there was order, not chaos, when you came to the port of entry, you were interviewed. Okay, you want asylum? Okay, here comes someone cross-designated. Ask you a couple questions. Nope, sorry, buddy. You're out. You're not allowed in. In fact, you're not even in America. Go back to wherever the hell you were. You don't get it. This is a BS thing. Gone. Do you know that asylum officers now, 95% of them are former immigration attorneys, defense attorneys? They're the ones doing it. Border Patrol agents were cross-designated, and they were doing a 90 to 10 approval rate. Border Patrol agents came in to augment the asylum officers. Do you know what we went to? We went to a 90% declination. And guess what Joe Biden did to all of those hundreds of Border Patrol agents? We don't need you anymore. Get out of here. We're going back to 90%. Yes, you can come in. Again, but Armand, we keep coming back to this. You're trying to split hairs. I'm telling you, I want the border secure, shut down, and I'm giving you asylum, legally asylum, not chaotic asylum. Once we get everything under control, we understand what's going on, we have enough asylum officers, we have immigration judges. Immigration judges should be on the border, running 24 hours a day. I agreed to all that. I'm the president, I give you $100 billion I was going to send to Ukraine to get sucked away. I'm giving you $100 billion. You're my border czar. First thing, border secure. No one comes across. And you keep telling me that these people just want asylum. They're good, hardworking people. And I'm telling you, that's a lie.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the legal mechanism. I think part of the difference of how you and I see it is like I see this as a very complicated, like legal and technical problem, which is why I'm trying to get into the legal and technical details. And so I think I agree. The vast majority of people are applying or largely because you see it relating to economic conditions, right? When there's a lot of hiring in the United States relative to other countries, suddenly there's a lot more asylum claims, and it's like a lot of it's
But you can't get asylum because economic reasons.
Right,
You're
right.
Just
and so
proving my point.
Like, I'm not saying that everybody's claiming asylum is like a good person who deserves it. I'm just saying that right now, the vast majority of people who are crossing the border are going through that. That's the avenue they're pursuing.
Correct.
So I do agree. Like, yeah, I think like if we could have 24/7 immigration judges on the border and all of that, like do it through ports of entry, like yeah.
Okay.
I think
then my follow-up question though, Armand, is this. Your presidential person that you're backing, Kamala Harris, doesn't want to do anything that we just talked about. Not one thing.
Like,
you don't agree with that?
I think the border bill she supported had a lot of that.
Come on. That border bill was a boondoggle. They had triggers built in that if you get to 5,000 a day, it triggers. We don't let anybody in. Again, I come back to this. You are going to count the amount of illegal aliens that come into our country, and then you're going to shut the border down. That was in the bill. Those were triggers.
The bill's triggers, for one, all those triggers are much lower than the level of immigration that had been happening for like months.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true. It was 5,000 a day. Okay, but still, wait a minute. I need to finish this thought. That is a microcosm of what I want to do. So let's just say for unicorns and rainbows, that was a great idea. So 5,000 people come into the border right now, and that would happen around if the clock strikes at midnight at about 8 or 9 in the morning. 5,000 people had already been arrested. Okay, how are you going to stop 5,001? And they have no answer.
No,
none.
What they're doing now because they did it via executive order is that like when people cross and they're no longer eligible for asylum, they just they don't process their asylum claims. I mean, that's what the bill was going to do.
No. The bill said at a certain number, which was 5,000, and then it fluctuated all over, but 5,000 is the main number. At 5,000, we're going to shut the border down. Come on, man. You think I'm going to believe that bullshit? You're going to bring in 5,000 people, then I'm going to shut. How are we going to do it? Why didn't you? Why is 5,000? Why is 5,000 illegal aliens okay into America? Why? And how are you?
5,000 border crossings, like vast majority of whom are trying to apply for asylum, which is not illegal.
Which 90 to 95% are economic refugees that cannot get asylum, but because they have broken the asylum system, they all come in. It goes round and round and round, and this is the problem that I have.
That's why we need the resources to assess those claims quickly and resolve them.
Okay, but how do you do that? You shut the border down, and then you get the resources. You don't patch the main water break because you can't patch it. It's not. There's 5 million asylum claims that are backlogged. If I hired 10,000 asylum officers right now, and it takes me a year to do background checks and then another year to train, they still can't even touch this asylum claims because it's so broken. They've destroyed our immigration system. They, being the left, have destroyed it. And you and I keep going around and around, and my time's up, Lev, but I'm not going to go around and around anymore. You either shut the border down or you get nothing. If that was me, if I was President Trump, I would say the border shut down. Ain't nobody coming in. Don't even come into my office with any of your anything. It's done. The border shut down, then you and I can talk. Because guess what's happened through history? President Reagan was the last guy to be duped. Sir, give everybody amnesty, we'll close the border. Okay. And on his deathbed, prior to him having full-blown dementia and Alzheimer's, he continually said, the greatest mistake I ever made in all of the 8 years was listening to anyone about asylum and immigration. They lied to me, and they've lied to me every single day. Until I see that border shut down completely, I don't want to talk about anything else. Nothing. It's not even on the table.
So I know, JJ, you got to go soon. To just quickly break it down, what we're basically talking about here is a chicken and egg situation, where if it's 2,500 or 5,000 crossings per day, whatever that threshold is, from what I understand, the ideal scenario here with that Biden bill would be, well, they cross over, but since some of them happen to be, refugees, then it's sort of okay. But to the point that JJ was just talking about, that would not be okay, because like both of us, or all three of us were in agreement here, there's a lot of problems with how this processing is going on when it comes to refugees. Like, all three of us agree that it's full of problems, it's full of holes. So
hold on, Lev. Let's assume, just for a sake of critical thinking, let's say that all 5,000 are legitimate asylum claims.
Okay.
All of them. How is this government going to stop the 5,001 person? And no one has an answer, because there is no law enforcement apparatus in place to shut the border down. Do you see where the lie is? That's the lie. That's the selling the trinkets to the Indians. It's the whole boondoggle lie. The federal government does not want to shut it down. And ultimately, if you can shut it down after 5,000, why can't you shut it down at 0?
Well, Armand, with the 5,001 situation, how would it be shut down under that bill? What would be the process?
The process is pretty similar to what literally is happening now. One thing I felt really frustrated by is I was told many times that you could not do this legally without a change in the law, and then they were able to do a version of it through executive order. Because when Trump attempted it, the courts pushed back on him, but I think the courts have just changed. And so they've been allowing these to go without an injunction, at least, although they're just going through the courts. But the way they do it is they just say, we're not accepting any more asylum applications. And so after a certain amount, they just don't process them, they don't accept them, and you're not let into the country.
So they would physically block people from coming in at that point.
Well, the way, JJ can confirm this to me, it's not like people are the issue right now is not the vast majority of these people are sprinting across the border.
No, that's true.
Asylum.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true. So right now, I know it's hard to believe, 80% of the southern border does not have one single Border Patrol agent working, because they're all processing. Everyone has told me, and I have lived it, between 15 and 18 million illegal aliens have crossed the border undetected and absconded. The federal government has already admitted to over 3 million gotaways. I'm telling you, they're lying. Let's just go off of what they're saying. They've arrested 12 million, released 12 million, have released 95 to 97% of everyone that's arrested is released. Only 3% get deported. They have admitted to flying in illegally over 1 million people. They have admitted to over 3 million getaways. And everyone in my business knows that is, they laugh at that. So the idea that people are just presenting themselves to the Border Patrol for asylum and that's it is a lie, because millions and millions and millions of people have crossed the border undetected, absconded. You and I haven't even discussed the northern border. In one sector, let me tell you how prevalent this is. One sector, Swanton sector, covers the Northeast, New York, New Hampshire, Maine, all that. In June, 1 month, they made more arrests in 1 month of 85 different nationalities than they have done in the last 13 years combined. 1 month, 13 years combined, more arrests in 1 month. The northern border is a sieve. The whole world is pouring into America. 195 nations on planet Earth. There are over 180 nationalities in Border Patrol arrest data. The idea that this is an asylum issue is wrong. The issue is the border is 100% wide open, and they are exploiting it. Let me tell you, just to make sure this is clear before I go, the cartels, the human smuggling and narcotic smuggling cartels run the border. They determine who, how many, and from where crosses the border. They are playing chess with a bunch of people that don't even know how to find the checkerboard. in our government. We are being destroyed from within by traitors that are running our country. There's no way else that I'm going to say that. I created 2 documentaries called What is Treason, and I prove it without a shadow of a doubt with incredible data, incredible whistleblowers, incredible people within the government that say exactly what I'm saying. Look, I have to go, but I want to say, number one, thank you for having me. Number two, you're an incredibly intelligent man. I was excited to come on because I want to have my ideals pushed against me. And there are a couple things that you said that I need to make sure that I am better prepared on and go in. And economics is it. Even though I disagree with you, I am going to dive into that so I am more prepared next time you and I have a discussion. But thank you, because it makes me sharper in my ability to articulate, or it shows me where my weaknesses or soft spots are that I need to harden. So thank you. But I do agree with you on quite a bit. I
JJ,
agree that this is the discussion to have about legal immigration.
JJ, before you go, there is one super chat, $20. I have to read it, and then you are free to go.
All right.
Really quick. So this is from Big Time. Reminds me of the Supreme Court case of the Students for Fair Admissions versus North Carolina and Harvard. When asked how long did we have to use race as a factor for college admission, their answer was forever.
Okay, what's that have to do with me?
I don't know. That was the super chat that was written down there, so
okay.
I wanted to vocalize it. And one other super chat, $30 from Biltong USA. And JJ, Armand, have you guys had biltong? It is a South African delicacy. It is like this, what do you call it? It's like a dried meat, and it's so delicious. I've been eating all this salted meat nonstop. And if you go to biltongusa.com and use code word BTR10, you get 10% discount. Game meats are also available. Kangaroo. Have you guys had kangaroo meat yet?
I have not, but I will have to try that, Lev.
Yeah.
I'll have to try it.
Yeah, Anton's biltong. It's good for your tum-tum. So, JJ, thank you so much. And guys, listen, be sure to go right now to thisistreason.com. Watch JJ Carrell's documentary, thisistreason.com. I watched it. It is quite a heartbreaking documentary. It's not easy to watch. I can tell you that right now. It talks about the human trafficking, of children that's going on right now. And this is something like Armand. I hope that you get a chance to watch it. We'll send you a copy. And, regardless of where we are politically speaking, if these are things that could be shown and demonstrated and, the whistleblowers being heard out here, the ones that are on the show, it is definitely something that we have to keep an incredibly close eye on, because it is pretty evil what's going down there. So we got to address it.
Yeah, it's bipartisan. It has nothing. It's children being trafficked. Yes, the Democrats are in charge. Yes, I lay a lot of blame on them in the documentary, but I also lay blame on the Republicans. It's a uniparty issue. The fact that we are allowing children to be sex trafficked in America is detestable and is evil. And I don't think anybody would have a problem with making sure those children are not abused and destroyed. I think that's a fair and valid statement. Guys, thank you very much for allowing me almost 2 hours to speak like this. Thank you very much, Lev. Anytime.
Thank you so much, JJ.
Very nice to meet you.
Before you go,
All right.
I really learned a lot hearing from you and your personal experience in particular. You know a ton about this stuff, so I really appreciate it. And thank you for your service. Like you helped protect our country for a long time, and I'm grateful.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think when we talk and if we go back and look at this, you and I are going to agree on way more than we disagree on. We really do. I really believe that. And because if it's a million here, a million there, there's a split in hairs, right? Or we need more asylum. That those are issues that we can iron out. So I think we have more in common than we disagree with. I really do. And I think that is really what Americans have. We have more in common than we have disagreements. I really believe that. I just believe that we have been balkanized politically for expediency on both sides. So
and this is what BTR does. It brings all the people together. It builds the bridges to unbalkanize us, just like the founding fathers intended.
Yes.
So guys, subscribe right now. Smash that subscribe button. Smash the bell. Patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron today. JJ, thank you so much for doing this. And Armand, thank you so much. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we leave. But JJ, I know you got to go right now, brother. So I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you, guys. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, Armand, Before we go, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So once again, patreon.com/breaktherules. Guys, if you're not a patron yet, I don't know what you guys are doing, because I'm going to be having New York City events. And Armand, I would love for you to attend one. What are you pointing at right now?
I'm trying to point at you. Subscribe.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah. So patreon.com/breaktherules. I'm putting the link in the chat over here. Become a patron right now. And $20 patrons are going to have the opportunity to attend a live recording of the events. Right now, we're still waiting on when the Jason Giorgiani event is going to happen, but it should be happening soon. And if the weather is going to be good still, and if not, it's going to be next year in the spring, we're going to go up to the roof. We're going to have a nice roof party in the condo. It's going to be kick-ass, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. And again, paying definitely supports the buildup of the show, because where else are you going to have an opportunity to get somebody who is a more activistic for the Democrat Party? Armand Domalewski here from San Francisco, speaking
Follow
with
me
former
on twitter.com/Armand Doma.
Armand Doma.
.com/Armand Doma. It's just my first name and the first four of the last name.
Exactly. There we go. And you've also recently been in the United States outfit. There was an article that was about what was that? You were in some kind of a
Harris. We were organizing to support building more housing and supporting Kamala Harris for that reason.
There we go. So guys, you heard it here. Armand Domalewski, Armand Doma on Twitter. In fact, I'm going to post all of these things in the chat right now for you guys. So number one, this is treason.com. I'm posting the link in the chat. Go into the chat right here. This is treason.com. Number two, Armand's Twitter, twitter.com/Armand Doma. Here it is. And of course, we got J.J. Carrell, twitter.com/JJ14. There we go. And his book, Invaded, The International Destruction of the American Immigration System. Here we go. Here is the link to that. And, of course, you could follow me on Twitter or X or whatever, twitter.com/LevPo, LEVPO. And, of course, the Discord. Be sure to go into the Discord. We have a growing community of BTR heads. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it. And until next time.